So by now you may have heard of the INURIG, this really crazy looking live worm rig that's come out of Japan. It's really busted the seams over there in Japan. It's making its way over in the US. The question that I have is this just a gimmick? Is it just one of those things that's kind of busting out, or is it actually going to catch bass? And the other thing is that I've seen a lot of guys make YouTube videos about this here in just the last couple of days, but they don't show the proper way to rig this worm, which is really important if you want it to have the right movement. So I'm going to show the correct way to rig that worm in this video. So stay tuned, it's going to be a good one. Big thanks to Sportsman's Outfitters for sponsoring this video. But again, we're talking about the INURIG today. And anytime a new lure kind of comes about onto the scenes of bass fishing, like the chatterbait did, or the whopper plopper, or the A-rig, it just has a new vibration, a new look that a lot of bass haven't seen. And a lot of times the bass absolutely crush those lures for a short period of time. This really weird, odd looking rig, is it going to do the same thing? I don't really know. But here's the thing, is it is a very different motion than the bass have seen in the water. And I'm going to show you guys how to rig it in just a moment, but because it's different, it may just be something that bass respond to right now. It may actually outproduce things like a wacky rig or a Ned rig for a certain amount of time. Do I know this for sure? No. Do I know it catches fish? Yes. But if you are going to be catching fish on it, you need to make sure you're rigging it correctly. So let's jump right into the rigging process right now. I'm going to show you guys how to rig this on a Zoom Magnum trick worm. There's a number of different worms that can work. The original worm that it was first kind of done on was actually the Zoom Magnum Swamp Crawler. You're going to want your favorite wacky rig hook. You can actually use a hook like this that has a little weed guard to make it a little bit more weedless, or you can use a hook without a weed guard on it. Another key component is you're going to want some sort of split ring. This is a number 2. And guys, I'm going to leave a link for all the equipment that I'm talking about down in the description below so you can pick up the right stuff. You're also going to want some super glue, a pair of scissors, and then probably the most important part is the tubing that you use. And this is something that I'm not seeing a lot of guys talk about when it comes to tubing, is really what size tubing. I've heard it say just surgical tubing, but I went to 4 different department stores today. I went to Lowe's, Menards, Home Depot, Ace, and this was the smallest diameter stuff that I could find. This is actually a fuel line, and as you can see, the outside diameter is 3/16 of an inch, which in my opinion, that's just too thick of a tubing. You might be able to find some at your particular store or on Amazon, or you could go to Walmart and get you some coffee stirrers for $1.88. Now, one of the best things about using one of these coffee stirrers is not only is it cheap, but it actually goes through the worm really nice. And there's a certain way that you rig this with this stirrer or with the plastic tubing that a lot of guys aren't really saying correctly. The only place that I've seen it done correctly is on the original video. All right, so the first step of this is preparing the worm to be rigged. One of the big things you want to do right off the bat is actually cut this coffee stirrer at a little bit of an angle. You want a little bit of a point there. That's really gonna allow that straw to go through the plastic a lot easier. So if you guys look at this particular worm, we kind of have a flat part of the worm and then a rounded part of the worm. Some worms may not be that, they may be completely cylinder, but the nice thing about having that flat part is it really allows you to line up the straw in a very straight way, which is what you want. So this is the part that I see a lot of guys not doing correctly. A lot of videos out there are just telling you to put your tubing or your straw straight in perpendicular like that. That is not what you want to do. You actually want to go at a little bit of an angle. The original video says about a 30-degree angle. I'm not going to get out some sort of measuring device to show that. If you do it perpendicular, it actually has a lot of drag, and when you go to work that worm, it's actually going to get stuck. Just do your best guess. All right, so I'm going to go in about an inch down from the top, and I'm going to go through the round side. And again, I'm putting this in at a little bit of an angle. As you can see there with the rig, it has a little bit of an angle down. That actually is gonna make a big difference later. Now, my next hole puncture that I'm gonna do on this particular Magnum trick worm is about an inch down from this little egg sac area that you have down here. Now this time, the angle that you wanna go in is basically like this. If you go in at this angle, it's gonna give that worm a lot better movement than, again, going in it perpendicular. So about an inch down from that egg sac, we're gonna puncture our next hole at a little bit of an angle. So now as you can see, we have a slight angle. And on the last hole, it actually doesn't matter so much as far as the angle. I'm gonna go in about an inch from the bottom. And again, I'm gonna go straight through, and I'm literally just shish kebabbing this worm on there like so. Now, you do not have to leave this black tubing in the bottom of the worm. You can actually take it out, but I already skewered it. I'm just gonna leave it in there. It doesn't affect the action for what I'm seeing. So I'm gonna spread this apart so I have just a little bit more room to work with here. And the next thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this super glue and put a very, very small dab of super glue just above each of these pieces of plastic. And I'm gonna move the plastic up onto that super glue. So just a real small dab of super glue, and then I'm gonna move that kind of up there onto the super glue so that that straw is going to be stuck on the worm. Again, a real small dab, move that up on there, small dab, and move the next one on there. So as I'm letting this dry, I just want you guys to know that the worms, the hooks, all the equipment that you need, I'm gonna have linked down in the description. You can actually pick up everything that you need from sportsmansoutfitters.com, but don't trust me about it, trust my buddy Arnold.
First, I want to give a shout out to BassFishingHQ. At Sportsman Outfitters, not only can you find what you need for the INURIG, but you can also find your fishing needs for the best price. Jackhammers, whopper proppers, Ned rings, crankbaits, they can all be found now at sportsmanoutfitters.com. Remember this name. The link is in the description. Now, back to the show.
Thanks, Arnold. We're gonna cut this straw outside the plastic so that basically nothing but the plastic is still showing. So I'm gonna cut that. Whoa. All right, guys, so as you can see, we have our worm here with our 3 pieces of straw through it. We have these 2 up front at different angles. Now the time comes to actually rig the hook on this worm. You can use your favorite wacky rig hook. One of my favorite ones is the Trocar wacky rig hook, but you want a bigger size than a 1/0, and I don't have any. You really want a 2/0, and I happen to have a 2/0 owner hook here that I'm gonna use. All right, guys, so the first thing you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna take your fishing line and you wanna go through the eye of the hook. You wanna go through the point side and then let that guy just slide down. You're not even going to be tying on the hook, which is really interesting about this rig. Now I'm going to take my worm and I'm gonna go through the high part of that angled straw down into the worm. And then I'm gonna flip it over. You do not want this worm to be all twisted out. The same side that you came out of, you're gonna go back into the second straw, just like so. The same side that you came out of again, you're gonna go back through just like so. So now we got the worm, it looks like this. On the very end of that line, you're gonna take a split ring and go ahead and tie the split ring on. The big thing about tying the split ring on is you wanna make sure you don't have any line sitting in that little gap. So the last part of this is I'm basically just going to skin hook my hook on. The big thing with the hook placement is you want that eye of the hook to be right over that straw. If it's up here or if it's back here, there's gonna be a little bit too much drag. That line is not gonna go through the straw as smoothly and it's gonna restrict the action. So what I'm doing now is placing the eye of the hook on that straw, and I'm just gonna see where I'm going to skin hook that bait, which looks to be about right in here. I'm gonna go ahead and skin hook that worm just like so and pull it down. I have skin hooked my worm. The eye of my hook is right above the straw. That's the completed INURIG. Honestly, it just looks like a big mess, but here's the big thing. With that angled straw in here and up here, it really allows for better movement in your worm where it's moving a lot more free than when you had it straight perpendicular. And that's the INURIG. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to check out the links in the description for Sportsman's Outfitters. If you guys wanna watch another review video that I did on a Japanese lure, you can click this link right here and watch a sweet review on a swim bait. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, like it, comment below, and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video.